Like many people, I enjoy a good craft video, including bushcraft videos. And last week I saw one from Cypress Outdoor Adventures. He created a survival shelter that went mega viral, and I wanted to recreate it, just smaller. Welcome back to Boylei Hobby Time. This week I am recreating a survival shelter as seen in that YouTube video. To start things off, I used some XPS foam and I sketched out the basic shape that I was going to be attempting. I then hot glued all of the foam layers together, got out my handheld hot wire, I carved away the basic shape of the hillside. I then switched to my alpha blade to carve away a few of the finer details. One of the things that I really liked about Cyprian's video was the sound. It was just very, very pleasant. Not quite as pleasant as styrofoam being cut by a knife. It is hard to beat that nice squeaky sound that makes your teeth hurt. But in all seriousness, his video had very nice sound to it. That little space there is for a chimney. Cut up 4 little rectangles of foam, and I formed them into a chimney. After that, I cleaned up all of the scraps, and it was time to apply a terrain paste. After I had whipped that up, I used it to fill all of the gaps, smooth over all the transitions, and protect the foam from the spray paint. I left that to dry, and it was time to start cutting some sticks. Now I wish I could tell you that I went out and harvested these sticks in the wild like a true bushcrafter, but I did not. I found them at the store in the floral section. I know that's completely contrary and a disgrace to the bushcrafting way of life, but I didn't have time to go out in the snow and find some sticks, so I did what I had to do. And I'm not proud of it, but at least I had some sticks to work with. After I had applied the first layer of primer, I realized I wanted more texture, so I applied some coarse, fine, and very fine grit sand that I sealed with some water and glue. Then I took it and primed it for real this time. After that, it was time to start painting. I applied various tones of brown washes to recreate a dirt look. Then it was time to start assembling the shelter. I realize now that using superglue is also probably a bushcrafting party foul. I think you're supposed to use mud and grass and vines. Maybe the bushcrafting life is just not for me. Luckily, I did pre-cut all of the pieces of wood that I was going to be using to build this shelter, so that made construction go nice and smoothly. I made sure to leave that gap on the roof where the trapdoor sits for watching for wild boars and stuff. I realize now that I should have made the little trench approaching the door a little bit wider. It doesn't quite fit the full-size door, so I had to scale that down a little bit. But I made that and the trapdoor, and I glued those in place. Then it was time to add the greenery. I found this cool mat that is covered in moss, and it has an adhesive on the back, so you can cut it to whatever shape you want and then peel off the backing and stick it down. I tried to match what I saw in the original video, and to hide and soften some of those edges, I used some little tufts of grass. In his video, Cyprian adds a few ferns around his shelter, so I wanted to add some ferns as well. I found these at the store, and they were a little bit too big to use as is, so after a little bit of modification, I was able to use the same base, and I trimmed down the branches to a more accurate size. Then I glued all of the branches back onto the base as I saw them in his video. I also noticed that the pathway leading up to the door was covered in clay, so I went back with some Vallejo mud effects, and then I tinted that to the correct color. Then it was time to take my dried blended leaves and spill some of them on the floor, and put the rest on the diorama. I used some isopropyl alcohol and watered down glue to make sure that they all stuck in place. Before adding the finishing touches, I wanted to tidy up a little bit. The last thing to do was to clean up the edges with some black 3.0 and create some smoke. After I had stuck that down the chimney, I called it good. That is it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much to Cyprian Outdoor Adventures for the inspiration for this build. Thank you again to all of my patrons. You guys are great. Have an awesome week, everyone. We'll see you next time.